Beyond the splinter shields for the various gun emplacements that I prepared in the previous video, there are a lot of other components that need to go on the decks in this area of the ship. There are quite a number of mooring chocks and bollards, along with hatches of various sizes, ammunition crates, capstans, 2 winches, 2 paravanes, a larger sort of vent structure along with 2 smaller ones, and 2 positions for Mark 51 gun directors. Beyond all of that, the most complicated thing that I'll be constructing in this video is this curved wave brake, which requires me to modify the plastic one that is provided with the kit and replace at least a part of it with photo etch. Let's start with that. Only this large sort of block-like structure behind the wave brake is going to be retained. The plastic wave brake itself is going to be removed, so I don't need to be too careful about cleaning that up. But I do need to pay a bit of attention to cleaning up this plastic block. Unfortunately, one of the injection molding points is in a bit of an awkward position. It's up in this corner, which means I'm going to have to cut it out quite carefully to retain this sharp edge on the overhang. Otherwise, there's going to be a divot that I'm going to have to repair somehow. Fortunately, I was able to remove most of it using clippers and then a file to get the bulk of it out before cleaning it up with the sanding tool. This piece of plastic does need to be quite smooth because a photo etch plate is going to be placed on this face and it will need to sit flat. With the back of the block being in about as good a condition as I can hope for, I can now remove the plastic wave brake itself. It is simply clipped off, and then I use the sanding tool to shape the plastic around the edge to get it to align with the plastic of the block. I'm not entirely sure how much of the plastic wave brake to take off the front of the block. I think that I at very least need to take off the top of the wave brake so that there isn't this large plastic step up. But I'm really not sure how much of the entire face needs to be removed for it to fit properly on the model when there is a photo etch plate in front of it. I will take off at least some of it and then do a test fit and see how it goes. After taking a random guess as to how much plastic should be removed, I clean up the surface using sandpaper and then move on to preparing the photo etch. Fortunately, this piece of photo etch does have the corrugations on the back of it, which does make it a lot easier to curve. If it didn't have this, I think this would be a lot more problematic to get into the correct shape. As I cut it off of the fret, you can see that it on its own wants to already start curving, so I just need to help it along in a few specific places. Start by gently rolling it with a cylinder and trying to part on it the correct shape. Once I have the shape fairly close, I switch over to tweezers and make tiny adjustments to try and get the shape to be as close as possible to the plastic markings on the deck. After a few iterations of doing that, I have the photo etch in a reasonable state so I can do a test fit with the plastic block. And I think it is close enough. There is a little bit of a gap at the top which I will need to fill with something, but for now I'm quite happy with this fit, so I will glue the photo etch wave brake to the plastic block. To do the initial bonding, I'm going to use extra thin super glue that I apply with the super glue applicator to the gap between the wave brake and the block. I'm not putting on a lot of super glue at this point. I just want to put on enough super glue to tack the wave brake to the block so I can pick it up and then bond it properly. At this point, I don't want to glue this assembly onto the deck. Once that initial little bit of glue has sufficiently dried, I pick up the structure and apply more glue to ensure that it is properly bonded. After that glue has dried, I then fill the gap between the wave brake and the plastic block with plastic putty. After leaving the plastic putty for around a day to dry, you can then remove the excess. I start by scraping it off. This is a very constrained space, so I want to just try and get as much of it off as quickly as possible using a flat screwdriver. This works fairly well, but it does leave quite a rough surface. So after scraping off that initial bit of putty, I move on to a 600 grit sanding cloth that I grip in tweezers. This is a slow and tedious process, all caused by being in a very constrained space that I need to work. These circular dots aren't helping the situation, they just get in the way. They weren't there, this would be much easier. And I did think about removing them and then recreating them with photo etch discs of some sort. But in the end, I just worked through it with the sanding cloth until I got what I thought would be a reasonable surface. At which point I switched over to Mr. Surfacer 1000 to do more filling. As I said, the scraping with the screwdriver would have put some deep scratches into the plastic, And also don't think that I would have been able to get the plastic putty to perfectly fill the gap between the plastic and the wave break. So I'm going to try and flood the area with Mr. Surfacer 1000 and let it flow and fill that gap nicely. You've seen me do this multiple times now. The intention here when I'm spraying the surfacer is not to create the finish that will be painted over. It's to fill gaps. This means that I'm going to be flooding the area with the intention to sand off the majority of the surfacer later on. The reason why I'm not painting it on is because if you paint it on, the chances are you transfer little micro bubbles and then you have to fill those at some point. If you airbrush it on, you don't have that issue with micro bubbles and it flows nicely into all the gaps, and I find you generally get a better surface to sand smooth. After leaving the surfacer to dry for around a day, it's now hard enough for me to remove with sandpaper. To remove the excess on the photo etch itself, that's easy enough and quick enough to do with the sanding tool. There's no details that I need to preserve over here, so I'm able to just sand that off. But for the surfacer in the gap between the wave break and the plastic block, there I am going to have to once again go over to 600 grit sanding cloth and slowly work my way through it and hopefully get a nice flat finish. I'm not going to spray another layer of surfacer onto this component. I need to prime the metal first before I do any of that, so I'll just set it aside and hope that this is good enough, and when the time comes, if there are corrections that need to be made, I'll just make them. So, with the wave break now attached to the plastic block, I can now install the support struts that go behind the wave break. These are just triangular type support struts that you find all over the ship. They've actually provided a couple extra of these. I don't know why. I only need 8 and they have provided 10. But it's always nice to have a few extra in case something gets lost, although these are quite large components, so I don't expect to lose them very easily. To install these support struts, I am going to install them while the wave break is positioned on the deck. I want to be sure that the way that the wave break is sitting and the support struts are sitting all works correctly with the deck and there aren't any obstructions. That's why I've placed the wave break on the deck and then taped it down. That is just to hold it in the correct position while I'm working on the support struts. To actually install the support struts, I apply a small drop of medium viscosity superglue to the tip of a support strut and then place it in contact with the wave break. After repeating this process for all 8 support struts, I remove the tape and lift the wave break off of the ship. The bond for the support struts to the wave break is then reinforced with extra thin superglue that I apply to the base of each support strut and let capillary action draw the glue down the length of the support strut. The last detail to be added to the wave break is this small photo etch vent cover that gets installed along the perimeter of the block. This is a mesh, so I do need to be careful to not clog the small holes. So I position the mesh on the side of the block, dry without any glue, and then carefully hold the mesh in place and apply extra thin superglue to the edge of the strip. Capillary action draws the thin superglue under the strip of mesh, securely bonding it to the side of the structure. Moving on to the various hatches. The FlyHawk Super Detail Upgrade Kit provides resin hatches onto which the photo etch hatch can be installed to create a better 3D representation of the hatch instead of it just being some flat hatch on the deck. Before I can actually install the photo etch hatch onto the rectangle, I need to clean up the rectangle. It has a resin tab attached to it from the molding process. This needs to be cut off and that connection point sanded smooth. This type of hatch component I expect to see less and less these days as this kind of thing is replaced with 3D printing. If this was a 3D printed hatch, well, there wouldn't be any photo etch and there wouldn't be any need to clean up the side of it. It would just be a solid piece of resin that had attachments at the bottom. So it would just be a matter of snapping it off of its base and lightly sanding the base to ensure that it's flat. This kit I've had in my stash for a very long time. It was purchased well before 3D printing was common in the hobby. So it's the old style way of making replacement hatches. Although a 3D printed hatch would make this whole process a lot faster, it's not exactly a complicated process. After cutting the tab off of the resin component, I clamp the component in rectangular tweezers and use the sanding tool to remove the excess resin. This is another area where the sanding tool really does show its use. Doing this manually with a file or sandpaper would risk damaging the component. I could easily over sand it or round the edges. With the sanding tool, I'm able to be both fast and precise, which means I'm able to get a good result with removing this excess resin on all of these components first time, every time. Now that all the resin rectangles are prepared, I can prepare the actual photo etch hatch themselves. This is just a matter of cutting them off of their frets and ensuring that there isn't any little excess tabs of metal attached to the side of it. Once done, the hatch is installed on the rectangle, or more, the rectangle is installed in the hatch. I think it's easier to do it that way by simply placing the rectangle on top of the hatch, ensuring that it is centered, and then placing medium viscosity superglue on the inside of the rectangle. The medium viscosity superglue does take a few seconds to dry, so that does give me time to adjust the position if I'm not happy with it. This process is simply repeated over and over again. For the larger hatches, I do them one by one, just holding them in place with my finger while sitting on the cutting mat. When I moved on to the smaller hatches, I didn't have as much space to work with, so there I first stuck the photo etch to a piece of masking tape that was itself stuck to a card. But other than that, the process is essentially the same. That is all the hatch is done. Next up, we have a couple of vents. These photo etch vents replace rather ugly blocky plastic vents, so I'm quite happy about them. The only issue with them is that this photo etch is very thin. It is not possible to fold without using a photo etch folding tool. I did initially try to fold them without the tool, but as I started to bend up one of the panels, I noticed that the mesh was actually bending, and I wasn't going to get a crisp line. So I quickly switched over the photo etch folding tool to ensure that they were folded nicely on those edges. Other than that, the folding of these components is very simple. They aren't a very complicated shape, and there aren't any small details that need to be avoided. It's just a matter of ensuring that the component is correctly clamped on the lines and then folding the panels into the correct position. Something that I did notice is that these panels actually do go together very well. It's a strange thing to say, but sometimes when folding photo etch boxes, the panels somehow don't fit together properly. But in this case, they were perfect, like no gaps. I was very impressed with how well it actually fit together. So after folding all the panels into their position, I applied medium viscosity superglue to the inside corners and accelerated the bonding using superglue accelerator. Although it doesn't look like there are gaps on the join lines, I want to be sure, so I'm going to fill those with more medium viscosity superglue and cause it to instantly set using superglue accelerator. Once the superglue is set, I sand off the excess superglue using the 400 grit sandpaper on the rotary sanding tool. There is one small detail that goes on these vents. It's some kind of a rack or rail. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just a simple piece of photo etch that needs to be glued to the side of the vent. There is a fine line etched into the photo etch that shows you where this rail should go. So it's simply a matter of applying a small amount of medium viscosity superglue to the back of the rail, such that it can be tacked in place on the line. And then once tacked in place, the bond is reinforced with extra thin superglue. That is the two vents done. Next up, there is yet more splinter shield, but this is the easiest splinter shield you'll ever have to construct. It's simply a straight bar that gets cut off of the fret. Moving on. The FlyHawk Super Detail Upgrade Kit provides replacement bollards for this kit, which are much better than the plastic ones that come with the kit by default. The only unfortunate thing about these replacements is that the brass bollard itself sits in this plate which has holes that go straight through it. This means it's not possible to construct the bollards on this plate until you actually install it on the ship. There's nothing to glue the bollard to. So all that I can do for the bollards for now is to remove the plates from their fret and get the bollards ready for painting. That is all the photo etch that needs to be installed on the deck, so I'm now going to move on to the last of the plastic components. The most prominent of all the plastic components is this large square vent that goes near the stern of the ship. I'm a bit surprised there isn't any photo etch that is provided with the upgrade kit to be placed on this thing, but there isn't, so it's just a matter of removing the excess plastic and cleaning it up. There are then a whole lot of smaller capstans. They're the two main capstans for the anchors, and then a whole lot of these small ones that go all over the place. In total, there are 7 of these. Actually, these smaller ones might not be capstans, they might be mushroom vents of some variety, but they look like little capstans to me, so I'll call them that for now. After the capstans, there are 2 plastic winches. The way that these winches have been molded, I find very frustrating. They have these massively thick plastic connections to the sides of the winch. Why would they do it like this? It just makes it so much more difficult to remove and get a nice clean surface. This is one of the things about Trumpeter. They make these rather dubious choices when it comes to how they actually inject plastic into the molds. I think this is a bit unfortunate, and it did require a bit of careful sanding to get a reasonable finish, but I think if you look quite closely at it, it will be a bit wonky, but can blame that on Trumpeter. They shouldn't have put the injection points there. There must have been a better way for them to do this. Next up are the two emplacements for Mark 51 directors on the stern of the ship. The molding on these components is, for a change, fairly good. Even the injection points are in a convenient place, so it's just a matter of clipping them off of their sprue, doing some light filing and sanding, and they are ready for paint. Going back to the bow of the ship, there are two paravanes to be prepared. Once again, I was a bit surprised there isn't any photo etch for these components. Usually there is some photo etch that can be added to them to give a little bit of an enhancement, but nope, not this time around. That being said, they are very small, so I don't think there not being any photo etch on them is going to detract much from the overall model. So their preparation is just a matter of clipping them off of their sprue and doing some light sanding to get rid of the mold lines. The last of the plastic components are the ammunition crates. This ship has two types of ammunition crates. There are these small square ones that go higher up on the superstructure. To prepare these boxes, I clip them off of their sprue and remove any excess plastic. There are only 4 of these ones on the ship. But for the larger and far more common variety of ammunition crate, I've opted to go for 3D printed resin replacements. These ammunition crates are from Bunker Studio, and this set contains 30 pieces. I need around half of that. Preparing these components is basically what you'd expect from 3D printed components. I use a hobby knife to break them off of their base, just by cutting the support struts at the top where they are narrowest and attached to the actual component. Being rectangular components that are essentially just blocks, they are very strong and easy to work with. For the ones that don't fall off on their own, I use tweezers just to pry off the last of the connections and remove them from the base. Of course, snapping them off of the base this way does mean that there is a little bit of residue on the base of the ammunition lockers, so I grip them with tweezers and do very light filing to smooth out the base. That is really all that is required for 3D printed components. The last of the components to prepare for painting are the mooring chocks. These have also been replaced by the FlyHawk Super Detail Upgrade Kit, once again with molded resin components. So yet again, I need to remove them from their resin tabs. As with the rectangles for the hatches, this is quite a simple process, although since they are considerably smaller, a little bit more tricky. But after removing the tab using the hobby knife, I grip them in tweezers and lightly file the underside to create a flat surface. I am very happy to see these mooring chocks. The plastic ones that you often find molded in kits are horribly out of scale. I do suspect that these ones are still a little bit out of scale, but they look so much better than the plastic ones that came with the kit. I'm really glad to see them. I think they're a nice addition to this detail upgrade kit, and I hope that in the future more detail upgrade kits included 3D printed versions of these mooring chocks that are even better to scale. That is almost all of the components that need to be installed on the deck. Not everything. There is a lot of detail around the anchor chains, the anchors themselves, and various fastening points for the anchor chain that still needs to be done, but that's going to be its own separate video. I'm not going to be doing that in the next video. I think in the next video I need to move back to painting. The time has come for me to paint the main armament and secondary armament. They are the last things that I need to paint to be absolutely sure that the camouflage pattern is working correctly. If you don't want to wait for the scheduled release of videos and want to watch them when they are uploaded, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. If you would like to support the channel, like and subscribe, and as always, questions are welcome in the comments. Thank you for watching. Cheers.